push you down. Who might be pretty, but we're still bitter as much as we're sweet. Knife hidden under the sheets, baby, don't skill. Don't provoke us or we will go.
The film begins with the doll maker Samuel Mullins creating his first ever limited edition doll. Samuel finds a note with the phrase, "Find me." He then leaves his workshop to his house. There he finds another one with the word "closer." As he wanders his eyes in the living room, Samuel replies to the note saying, "Found you." After that, he leaves, and his daughter Annabelle comes out from her hiding spot, looking for him. Samuel suddenly appears from behind, surprises his daughter, and tickles her. The house is filled with laughter as the wife joins them. Later that night, the wife puts Annabelle to bed and leaves the gramophone playing "You Are My Sunshine." The following day, while coming home from the church, the family's car hits a rough patch. Samuel's having a hard time fixing the damage, so the wife suggests getting help, but Samuel insists that he can fix it. One of its bolts clatters as he attempts to remove the tire, so Annabelle runs to get it. However, she fails to notice the coming car, and before they know it, Annabelle gets hit. 12 years later, Sister Charlotte and several orphans arrive at Samuel's residence. The girls excitedly get out of the vehicle while Janice, who has polio, takes her time to look around the area. Samuel welcomes them and shows them around. The girls are enthusiastic as they explore the new spacious orphanage. Samuel informs them that their rooms are upstairs, and since Janice has a disability, she needs to stay downstairs. However, Samuel is prepared. His house has a stairlift that he made for his wife, but it hasn't been used for years. Janice tries this, and everyone claps in happiness for her. As she reaches the top of the stairs, a white figure appears in the dark hallway. It quickly leaves before Janice can see it. Janice dismisses it and looks for the rooms to stay in with the other girls. Janice wants to stay in the large room with 4 beds, but the older orphans, Nancy and Carol, refuse to let Janice and Linda stay with them. They chose the 2 other girls. Janice doesn't make a big deal and looks for another room, but Samuel stops her before she can open the room by the stairs. He warns her not to go into the locked bedroom and leaves. Linda then calls her into their room, which has a bunk bed and dolls on display. Meanwhile, Sister Charlotte settles in her own room, and while she unpacks her luggage, the lift behind her opens slightly. She checks the insides and pulls down the wooden door after feeling the breeze in her room. However, the door opens wide by itself, but her confusion turns into shock when Nancy suddenly calls her name, asking permission to go outside. Sister Charlotte gives the girls permission to explore outside, while Janice has to remain inside due to her disability. She walks to the windows without her crutch and sighs heavily as she watches the girls have fun without her, wishing she's normal. As tears fall on her cheek, Annabelle slowly walks from behind her. Janice feels something. She turns around and finds the hinges creaking and her crutch on the floor. Although confused and scared, Janice dismisses how her crutch suddenly got there. Later that night, while sitting around the dining table, everyone hears a bell ding. Samuel excuses himself after saying grace and walks toward their bedroom. Carol sneaks behind him, curious to see what's inside. But Samuel closes the door, and Sister Charlotte stops her. After dinner, Janice and Linda pray before going to bed. Later that night, while Janice waits for herself to be sleepy, she hears footsteps at the door. She checks it and finds a note slipped under the door with the phrase, "Find me." She exits their room and looks for who slipped the note. Another note slips from inside the locked room with the phrase "in here." She enters the room, which mysteriously becomes unlocked. She finds a beautiful huge dollhouse that looks exactly the same room she's in. Janice finds a key there, so she uses it to open the closet. As she opens the door, an eerie porcelain doll shows sitting on a chair. Janice closes the door, creeped out by the doll, and returns to the dollhouse. However, the door suddenly opens by itself. She closes it again and ensures it's locked, but the door reopens. Janice then puts the cover on the doll so she can't see its creepy face. She walks to the windows after hearing a faint thud, unaware that the doll has stood up on its own. There she finds Samuel walking back to the house, but then he rushes inside after noticing Janice in the room. Janice turns to leave when she sees the doll standing before her, still covered. The doll begins walking towards her, its cover slowly dropping to the floor as it approaches Janice. She steps back, too stunned to scream or make any noise. As the cover finally drops to the floor, Janice whimpers after seeing nothing underneath it. She quickly gets out of there and goes to their bedroom, while the locked bedroom closes by itself. As she hears the footsteps approaching and their bedroom door opening, Janice pretends to be asleep. Janice accidentally knocks over her crutch, making her scared even more, thinking she's been caught in the act. However, Samuel dismisses it and leaves. The following day, Janice confesses to Sister Charlotte what she did and what happened last night. Sister Charlotte gives her a lecture about making a mistake in their new orphanage that can affect not just her, but also the other girls. Janice apologizes for her sin, and Sister Charlotte instructs her to unpack 3 boxes for her penance. Meanwhile, the other girls trick Linda into playing hide-and-seek. Linda suddenly hears a faint creaking behind her. She checks it and finds the porcelain doll sitting in the dark. However, she notices something behind it, hiding in the darkness. Linda tries to see what it is, but something suddenly pulls the doll into the dark. In shock and fear, Linda accidentally opens the door, causing the girls to find her. She dismisses losing the game, as she's still too stunned and terrified by what she just witnessed. Later that day, Samuel fixes the draft to keep it down and closed. After that, he asks Sister Charlotte about the photograph on her nightstand. She shares it was taken in a convent in Romania, where she got close to the 3 nuns in the picture. However, there's a nun whose face cannot be seen as the tunnel's darkness hides her face, but she also has no idea who it is. Later that night, while everyone's asleep, a flashlight gives light to the 2 older girls hiding underneath a blanket, making fun of Samuel's wife. As they laugh about their silliness, the 2 hear the faint sound of the bell ringing. Carol makes fun of it, saying that the wife is ready to be fed. However, the bell keeps ringing, followed by the floorboard creaking and the flashlight buzzing. As the light goes out, the bell rings louder, and as they look on their side, they find a silhouette, thinking it's the wife. The girls shut their eyes and shiver in fear as she slowly approaches them. The bell rings loudly one more time before the silhouette disappears, but then, as they think she's gone, someone grabs Carol's face. The 2 scream loud in shock and fear and remove the blanket over their heads. One of the other girls turns on the lights. Sister Charlotte wakes up to their screams and enters. Samuel shows up too, and the girl frantically explains that they saw his wife in their room. Samuel denies this, informing them that it has been years since his wife walked. After that, he leaves to tend to her after hearing her ringing the bell faintly. The following day, while the girls are outside, Sister Charlotte hears the bell ringing and enters the couple bedroom. Samuel has left the house, so she tends to his wife. As she gives the wife a glass of water, Janice enters a room. She eavesdrops from outside after hearing muffled chattering. Sister Charlotte comforts the wife after sharing how Annabelle was taken from her at such a young age. She says that Annabelle is waiting for them in heaven. Janice turns her back to leave, but she finds a picture of Annabelle with the doll she found in the closet. For some unknown reason, Janice decides to take it with her. Later that night, Janice notices Annabelle's shining eyes in the picture when she attempts to hide the frame. She then hears footsteps approaching, followed by the gramophone playing "You Are My Sunshine" in Annabelle's room. Although scared, Janice turns it off when Linda enters the room. They tell each other they shouldn't be there, but still remain inside. Linda takes a toy gun and accidentally hits the doll with the ball, causing its head to move. The 2 argue in a whisper whether it's the doll that turned on the music. As Linda pulls the ball, they find the doll facing them. This prompts her to leave, but Janice stays in the room. She snoops around, and while reading what seems to be Annabelle's diary, the door suddenly slams shut. It's then followed by marionettes jiggling. But when checking it, Janice finds the strings manipulated by an unseen entity. After that, the dollhouse lights turn on by themselves. While checking the dollhouse, Janice notices someone by the window. Annabelle's back faces her, and although scared, Janice asks what she needs. Annabelle screams that she wants her soul in a demonic voice. It turns out it's a demon who has taken Annabelle's form, and it grabs Janice's leg, stopping her from escaping. However, Janice crawls her way out and walks toward their room when the doors suddenly slam shut. Left with no choice, Janice uses the stairlift, but it stops halfway and returns upstairs. After that, Janice gets lifted up in the air before getting dropped to the downstairs floor by the evil entity. This leaves Janice completely unable to walk and dependent on a wheelchair. While Sister Charlotte fixes the couch as Janice's new bed, Janice shares her encounter with the demonic force. Sister Charlotte replies that the devil preys on the weak, and Janice is as strong as them. Later that night, through the keyhole, Linda finds the doll rocking itself on the rocking chair in Annabelle's room. Linda gets brave and opens the door, only to find that seat empty. Even after this, Linda takes the toy gun into their room and shoots it towards the dark and empty hallway. At first, everything seems normal, but when she's rolling the ball back, something in the dark grabs it and pulls it away from her. Linda quickly runs to her bunk bed and hides under the blanket, after hearing the floorboard creaking and footsteps approaching her rapidly. The lights suddenly go out, followed by the bed rattling. Linda looks down and finds footprints leading to the bed below. Linda checks it through the gap and finds an evil entity taking the doll. Linda remains on her bed, beyond terrified, until the morning comes. Meanwhile, Sister Charlotte leaves Janice outside for a while, hoping the quietness will give her peace and hope. As soon as she returns to the house, the evil entity poses her, pushes Janice into the shed, and locks her inside. After that, it destroys her wheelchair, and as she's unable to escape, the demon attacks and throws up black bile directly into her mouth. The girls and Sister Charlotte hear Janice's screams. They run to the shed and find Janice perfectly okay, sitting in the wheelchair. Janice smiles at Sister Charlotte, confirming that she's fine, but Linda backs away as she feels otherwise. The following day, Linda confesses to Samuel that Janice had sneaked into Annabelle's room and found the doll. Samuel warns Linda not to come anywhere near the doll. After that, he enters the house holding the wooden crucifix, where he follows Janice's humming. Samuel gasps as he finds the doll sitting at the center. Samuel approaches it and finds a note on the table saying, "Found you." Right then, Janice, who has gained the ability to walk through demonic possession, enters the dining room. She transforms into a demon while singing "You Are My Sunshine," and one by one breaks Samuel's bones, forcing him to drop the crucifix. After hearing his screams, Sister Charlotte comes into the house and is terrified after seeing his dead body. Later that night, while everyone's asleep, Linda quietly takes the doll from Janice and drops it into the well outside in the fields. Sister Charlotte appears and instructs her to return to the house. Linda turns around to leave, but she hears indistinct whispering coming from the well. She looks down, trying to see who it is, but is suddenly grabbed into it. Sister Charlotte quickly runs to her, saves her, and puts the cover on the well. The two run back into the house, as whatever is in the well is trying to get out. As they return, they discover that the doll is back in the house, while Janice is missing. Sister Charlotte instructs the girls to find Janice, while taking the doll to the couple's room and confronting Samuel's wife. The wife confesses that after Annabelle's death, they prayed to whatever entity would grant their wish to see their daughter again. An unknown entity answered their prayers, and although it started small and only saw Annabelle briefly, they let her move into the doll so she could be with them forever. Even though they couldn't hold her, it was enough to know and feel her presence. But one night, when looking at the mirrors, she discovered it was actually a demon who was using Annabelle to prey on the human soul. Later that night, she entered Annabelle's room holding a crucifix and a Bible, attempting to cast out the evil in their house. However, the demon reveals itself in its true form and gauges her eye. That's why the wife now wears a doll mask on her left side. The church saved her soul, but the demon was still attached to the doll, so they locked it away in Annabelle's closet, surrounded by the Word of God. As their penance, they later opened their house as a shelter for orphans, but they realized they were wrong because it allowed the demon to claim a soul. Back to the present, the girls find Janice having a tea party with the doll in Annabelle's room. Janice turns around, walking perfectly fine, and tells them it's time to cease their sins. Sister Charlotte hears their screams as they run downstairs, and Nancy shows her arm slashed by Janice. She orders them to call for help while she runs upstairs. After calling for help, the girls hear the bell ringing from the couple's bedroom. They enter the room looking for Samuel's wife, only to find her bisected and crucified. The girls hurriedly leave the room while screaming. Meanwhile, Janice suddenly appears, stopping Sister Charlotte from leaving with Linda and the other girl. Sister Charlotte prays in a foreign language, hoping it will save them from Janice, but she gets lifted up from the floor and thrown into the mirrors. The girls run away from the bedroom in horror, but Linda stumbles and is dragged along the floor. Linda hides in Sister Charlotte's room, while the other girls get into Samuel's truck, finding it not starting. As the engine sputters, Nancy witnesses the scarecrow move on its own and then suddenly vanish. The girls run to the shed, but the three remain outside, while Carol enters as they see the scarecrow inside. Carol attempts to leave, but the door suddenly slams shut, trapping her inside. As two light bulbs unscrew themselves and fall to the ground, Carol witnesses the scarecrow come to life as the demon manipulates it. She quickly screws the third light bulb back into the lamp when she hears the bell rings faintly, followed by the demon breaking the light. Carol endures the pain of falling from the ladder and escapes through the workshop. Just as when she thinks it's over for her, Nancy helps her escape through the windows. As Janice barges into the room, Linda hides in the draft and ends up in the couple bedroom, where she finds the wife's corpse on the floor. The bisected body suddenly moves and crawls toward Linda, prompting her to get into the draft and leave the room. She's able to pull up halfway as the demon drags the draft. Linda pulls herself up and holds onto the rope as the demon grabs the whole draft. She leaves it, looking for Sister Charlotte, but instead, she finds Janice stabbing her doll. Terrified, Linda hides in Annabelle's closet, but Janice still finds her and prepares to kill her. Sister Charlotte stops her, holding the doll, and as Janice tries to take it away from her, she puts a rosary over her head and shoves her inside the closet with the doll. After that, she tips the glass cabinet in front of the closet, prompting paranormal activities to occur. The two leave the house as furniture and toys are thrown around. They run into the girls outside, and they all shiver in fear as all the lights begin exploding. The police find the doll still in the closet, but Janice has escaped through a hole. The girls let the police leave with the doll after the priest blessed it and the house. Sister Charlotte and the girls leave the place with the priest, looking for another house to be their orphanage. Meanwhile, Janice, still possessed and reclusive, has relocated to an orphanage in Santa Monica, California. Janice now calls herself Annabelle and gets adopted by the Hagens. 12 years later, she murders them, prompting their neighbors to investigate, as shown in the first episode. The film ends in 1952 at Carta Monastery in Romania, where a nun walks through a hall lit with candles, which go out one by one as she passes by.